Some major clothing labels have agreed to put their money and their buying power to work in Bangladesh. It's to make sure garment factories there are safe places to work. Several famous names have agreed to help pay for and enforce major improvements and are pushing other Western retailers to join in. Jeannie Lee is here with more on that. So that is an interesting agreement, and because that was the concern. It's great to talk about it, but how do you enforce it? There needs to be some money backing enforcement.
Exactly, and all of this, of course, Andrew, comes on a day which is yet another difficult day in this story, with rescue workers ending their search for bodies in the rubble of that collapsed factory, and more than 1,100 people have died. Now, the plan is for 5 years. It covers the entire industry in Bangladesh. That's 5,000 factories. It calls for independent and thorough investigations and inspections, with retailers helping to pay the bills for repairs that are deemed necessary if they use those buildings to produce clothing. And if factory owners do not follow the orders to fix their buildings, then those retailers are supposed to just walk away from those owners. Now, the agreement also gives workers and their unions more of a voice, more of a say in matters of safety. So we contacted a professor on these matters who teaches at York University, and here's her reaction to this accord.
This is the moment to make good some of the unfulfilled promises to the workers, and these unfulfilled promises are not only from the companies but also from local governments.
And she and others have pointed out, obviously, that an outright boycott of Bangladesh as a place to produce clothing is not the answer when so many people count on that industry to put food on the table. And the point of many is that the retailers really have the power, the sway to make the changes that are necessary.
And consumers have the power and the choices of clothing that they buy. Right. So who's in and who's not in this agreement?
And consumers have had some power, have exercised the power with some online petitions, for example, really cranking up the pressure on some of the names that have become associated with Bangladesh. Now, this, we should say, is an expanded version of a plan that was started by 2 retailers last year after another incident, and they, of course, are in. So here's a list. PVH, which is the parent of Calvin Klein, Hilfiger, and Izod, it was one of the first 2 signing the original agreement, and so was Chibo, which is a German retailer. And today, H&M said that it would join, and this is significant because it is the single biggest buyer of clothing from Bangladesh, although apparently the records show that it did not use the factories in question, the factory that collapsed. Inditex, owner of Zara, which is another global chain of low-cost, fast fashion, as we call it. And soon after the news of those parties being in, we heard from C&A of the Netherlands and British giants Primark and Tesco. And you can expect them to put pressure on others. Now, Walmart hasn't said anything yet. We contacted Loblaw, which is the owner of Joe Fresh, and this is the remark from Julia Hunter, the VP of Loblaw Companies Limited. We are reviewing the accord. At this time, we are not in a position to comment on it. Now, a global coalition of trade unions is actually calling for Wednesday to be the deadline for people to sign in, retailers to sign in, and I don't know if they'll adhere to that, but at least there's a pressure of all these unions getting on side.
And how are the markets trading today?
We have kind of a slow day on this Monday after a few blistering weeks of gains, especially for the Dow Jones Index. It's given up 29 points of that massive rally, but still very close to its record high. The TSX, by the way, down 53 points. The Canadian dollar at about 98.86 cents US, with the price of oil and gold both backing off somewhat today.
Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.